You have probably noticed something strange without ever really stopping to think about it. Walk through almost any major zoo, and eventually you will reach the big cats. There are lions with shoulders packed with muscle, tigers so large that, standing beside one, the word cat suddenly feels almost ridiculous. Jaguars built like compact tanks, leopards powerful enough to drag heavy prey into trees. Even the animals we casually place in the same family as the house cat sleeping on somebody's couch can become predators roughly the size of a motorcycle. Then you reach the wolves, and they are impressive. They are fast, intelligent, relentless, highly social predators capable of bringing down animals much larger than themselves. But compared with a tiger, they look almost ordinary. An exceptionally large gray wolf may approach 80 kilograms. Most wild wolves are much
An
lighter than that.
exceptionally
A
large gray
large male
wolf may
tiger can
approach
outweigh
80
one several
kilograms.
times over, and yet
Most
both
wild
belong
wolves are
among the
much
most
lighter than
successful
that.
predators in the
A
environments they
large male
occupy. So, why did one branch of the carnivore family tree produce animals as enormous as tigers and lions, while another produced wolves, wild dogs, and other canids that mostly stayed in the medium-sized range? Why are there big cats, but no true wild dogs the size of a tiger? At first, the answer seems obvious. Cats simply became larger. Dogs did not. Evolution rolled the dice differently, and that was the result. But that explanation does not actually explain anything. Because evolution does not simply decide that one lineage should become huge while another should remain smaller. Large bodies are expensive. They require more food, more energy, more muscle, stronger bones, and enough prey to justify the enormous daily cost of keeping all that tissue alive. If an animal becomes larger, there has to be some advantage worth paying for. And that is where the difference between cats and dogs becomes much more interesting. Because this is not really a story about size, it is a story about hunting. More specifically, it is a story about two very different solutions to the same problem. How do you kill something that does not want to be eaten? For a tiger, the answer begins with being alone. A tiger is fundamentally a solitary hunter. It does not normally move through the forest with five teammates surrounding it. It cannot depend on another tiger appearing at the right moment to block an escape route. It cannot rotate positions with another hunter when it becomes tired. If its attack fails, there is no backup plan arriving from behind. The entire hunt is concentrated into one animal. That one body has to approach the prey. That one body has to launch the attack. That one body has to make contact. And that one body has to control an animal that may be larger, heavier, armed with horns, hooves, claws, or enough raw strength to seriously injure the predator. This creates a very particular kind of evolutionary pressure. A tiger does not need to run at top speed for 20 kilometers. It needs to be devastating for a few seconds. Its strategy is built around getting close without being detected and then releasing an enormous amount of power in a very short window of time. The tiger uses cover. It lowers its body. It waits. Sometimes it remains almost perfectly still while the prey moves closer, and then the entire animal changes. The quiet stalking machine becomes an explosive one. Its hind legs drive the body forward. Its forelimbs absorb impact and seize the prey. Its claws help hold onto a violently struggling animal. Its neck and jaws help complete the kill. The whole body is built around the idea that the first moments of contact matter enormously. This is ambush predation, and ambush hunting rewards a very different body from long-distance pursuit. Imagine you are a solitary predator trying to kill a large deer. If you are slightly faster over a marathon distance, that may not matter much if your strategy is to attack from 10 meters away. But if you are stronger, heavier, and more capable of controlling the prey once you make contact, that can make the difference between a successful kill and an animal escaping with you hanging uselessly from its side. For a solitary ambush predator, individual power has enormous value. A slightly larger animal may be able to tackle larger prey. A stronger animal may survive dangerous struggles that would injure a smaller one. More muscle can increase the chance that an attack succeeds. Over many generations, those pressures can favor predators capable of handling increasingly large prey. This does not mean bigger is always better. There is no evolutionary rule saying every ambush predator must eventually become gigantic. A larger body still costs more to maintain. It still requires more calories. There is always a point where additional size stops being worth the expense. But within the right ecological conditions, size can be extremely useful for an animal that must overpower prey almost entirely by itself. That helps explain the tiger. But what about lions? Lions are clearly social. They live in prides and can hunt cooperatively, which seems to complicate the entire argument. And it does. Nature rarely fits perfectly into the neat categories humans invent for it. But even in lions, the ability to kill large prey is built into the body of the individual animal. A lioness can participate in a coordinated group hunt, but she is still a heavily muscled predator, capable of bringing down substantial prey on her own under the right conditions. The cooperative behavior of lions did not erase the physical equipment inherited from the cat-style ambush body plan. Jaguars offer another variation on the same theme. They are not simply smaller tigers. They have their own extreme specialization, extraordinary bite strength for their body size. Jaguars can attack heavily protected prey and use methods that differ from the classic throat bite associated with many other big cats. Different cat species use different tactics, but a broad pattern remains. Many large cats depend heavily on a powerful individual animal getting close enough to control and kill prey quickly. Now, compare that with a wolf. At first glance, a wolf almost looks badly designed for the tiger's job. Its claws are not giant grappling hooks. Its body is not built around the same explosive mass. A wolf standing alone beside a healthy moose may look badly outmatched, but that is because the wolf is solving a different problem. It does not need to become a tiger. It has something the tiger usually does not. Other wolves. A pack changes the mathematics of the hunt. Instead of requiring one individual to do everything, several animals can divide the work. One wolf can pressure the prey from one side. Another can move into its escape path. Some members can push harder, while others conserve energy. The pack can react to changes in direction. Individuals can read one another's body language and movements during the pursuit. A target that would be extremely dangerous for a single wolf becomes far more manageable when several predators are working around it. And most importantly, wolves are built for movement. Their strategy often depends much more heavily on sustained pursuit than the tiger's strategy does. They can follow prey across open terrain, maintain pressure, force repeated movement, and exploit weakness over time. Biologists often describe this kind of approach as cursorial predation, hunting in which sustained movement and pursuit play a major role. That creates almost the opposite pressure from an explosive ambush. If your hunting strategy depends on traveling long distances efficiently, then carrying enormous amounts of extra body mass becomes expensive. Imagine scaling a wolf up until it weighs as much as a large tiger. At first, that sounds terrifying. A 300-kilogram wolf. What could possibly stop it? But now think about what that animal has to do. Every kilometer, it has to move 300 kilograms of tissue. Every acceleration becomes more expensive. Every long chase burns enormous amounts of energy. Every day, that body has to be fed. And because its hunting method depends on endurance and cooperation rather than a single overwhelming ambush, the extra size may not provide enough benefit to pay for itself. A pack of moderately sized predators can already combine their efforts. They do not each need to become giants. This is one of the deepest differences between the two strategies. The tiger concentrates power inside the individual. The wolf distributes power across the group. And once you see it that way, medium size stops looking like a failure. It becomes part of the design. A leaner body is easier to move. It requires less food. It supports endurance. It allows a social predator to stay effective without turning every member of the pack into an enormous calorie-consuming machine. The success of this strategy appears again and again among canids. African wild dogs, for example, are much smaller than wolves. They are not individually built to overpower the largest prey through raw strength. Yet, as a coordinated group, they can be extraordinarily effective hunters. Different continent, different lineage, same general principle. You do not always need the strongest individual if the group itself becomes the weapon. Even extinct canids seem to show versions of this pattern. The dire wolf was genuinely larger than the average modern gray wolf. Based on large fossil samples from places such as the La Brea tar pits, researchers have estimated that dire wolves were heavier and more robust than many living wolves, but they were still nowhere near the size of the largest tigers. And the basic canid strategy did not suddenly transform into that of a solitary giant cat. Even a larger wolf remained a wolf-shaped solution. But then the fossil record gives us something much more surprising. Because there really were giant dogs, not domestic mastiffs, not oversized modern wolves, a genuinely enormous ancient canid. Its name was Epicyon. Around 10 million years ago, Epicyon haydni lived in North America. It belonged to an extinct branch of the dog family, often referred to as the bone-crushing dogs. And it was huge. Exactly how huge is difficult to state with absolute confidence, because fossil animals cannot be placed on a modern scale. Scientists estimate body mass from skeletons, and different methods can produce different numbers. But conservative estimates still put the largest epicon in a completely different size category from the average modern wolf. Some estimates place large individuals around 125 kilograms, with higher figures occasionally proposed. That is not a wolf with slightly broader shoulders. That is an enormous terrestrial predator. Epicyon had a massive skull and powerful jaws adapted for tremendous crushing forces. For a moment in evolutionary history, the dog family really did experiment with becoming gigantic. So now the original question changes. It is no longer. Why could dogs never become large? Clearly they could. The better question is, why did giant canids disappear while giant cats survived? This is where the story becomes more complicated. It is tempting to create a simple evolutionary morality play. Epicyon became too big. It abandoned the perfect pack hunting lifestyle. It tried to imitate cats. Then conditions changed, and the smarter, smaller wolves defeated it. That is a beautiful story. It is also probably far too clean. Extinction rarely has one cause. Climate changes, habitats change, grasslands expand or contract, prey communities shift, new competitors appear, old competitors disappear. Species that once fit their environments perfectly can suddenly find themselves paying for adaptations that were valuable under completely different conditions. So, we should be careful about claiming that Epicyon vanished simply because it was large. But we can say something much safer. Being a giant predator is expensive. A very large carnivore requires a lot of food. Every day. Not when convenient. Not only during successful years, continuously. If prey becomes less abundant, a huge predator reaches an energetic crisis much faster than an animal with lower absolute requirements. A medium-sized social hunter may be able to switch prey, spread across a larger range, or use cooperation to exploit opportunities that would not support a giant solitary predator. That flexibility can matter enormously when environments become unstable. And Epicyon was not the only experiment with a large dog-like carnivore. There was also another extinct group called the Amphicyonidae, often nicknamed bear dogs. They were not simply dogs and they were not bears, but some members became very large predators with combinations of features that make the nickname understandable. They also disappeared. Again, that does not prove that big dog-shaped predators always fail. Evolution is not that simple, but it shows that large dog-like carnivores were possible. The modern world simply did not retain them. And this brings us back to the cats. Why can a tiger make giant size work? One important part of the answer is that its entire body is specialized for using that mass at the moment of attack. Look at the claws. In most cats, the claws remain retracted and protected when they are not actively being used. Because they are not constantly grinding against the ground during normal movement, they stay sharp. When a tiger reaches a struggling animal, those claws become gripping tools. That matters more than it first appears. Killing large prey is not simply a matter of biting harder. First, you have to keep contact with something desperately trying to escape. A prey animal may twist, kick, jump, roll, and slam its body against the predator. The tiger's forelimbs, claws, chest, and body mass work together to control that chaos. The claws help convert body weight into grip. Dogs are different. Their claws contact the ground and contribute to traction during movement. That makes sense for an animal whose lifestyle involves extensive travel and pursuit. But those claws are not functioning like the tiger's retractable grappling system. A dog relies much more heavily on the mouth when it needs to seize prey. At medium scale, especially with several animals involved, that can work extremely well. But if you simply enlarged a wolf until it weighed 300 kilograms, you would not automatically create a tiger-level solo predator. You would create a much heavier wolf. It would still lack some of the tools that cats use to control large prey. It would still carry a body adapted around a different history. And now it would have to feed that gigantic body while moving it through the world. That is why body plans cannot always be scaled up like drawings on a photocopier. A successful medium-sized predator is not necessarily improved simply by making every part twice as large. Different systems depend on different proportions, behaviors, and trade-offs. And even within the cat family, there is a perfect reminder that hunting style matters more than the label cat. The cheetah. A cheetah is a cat, but it is not built like a miniature tiger. Its body is light. Its limbs are long. Its entire form is organized around acceleration and extreme speed. Even its claws are different. They are only partially retractable and help provide grip during high-speed running. That trade-off fits the cheetah strategy. It does not need the tiger's massive grappling body because it catches prey in a very different way. And, interestingly, the cheetah is also much lighter than the biggest cats. The lesson is not that cats become huge and dogs remain small. The lesson is that hunting method helps shape the body. A predator built around explosive ambush can afford one set of adaptations. A predator built around sustained pursuit needs another. A predator built around extreme sprinting ends up different again. The body follows the problem. Now, Bring the story into your house. Think about a domestic dog. It follows people from room to room. It watches faces. It notices tiny changes in routine. It often reacts when someone prepares to leave. It may bark, whine, wait by a door, or explode with excitement when a person returns after what seems, to us, like a completely ordinary absence. It is tempting to explain all of this by saying your dog simply thinks you are another wolf in its pack. The real story is more interesting. Dogs come from a deeply social evolutionary background, but domestication also changed them. Over thousands of years living beside humans, the animals that tolerated us, understood us, cooperated with us, and succeeded around human communities entered a completely new kind of partnership. The social abilities that already mattered among canids now had a new target, another species. Us. Humans began living with dogs somewhere within a broad window that is still debated by researchers, with estimates often falling tens of thousands of years into the past. The precise location, timing, and number of domestication events remain complicated questions. But the result is obvious. At some point, a canid lineage became extraordinarily good at living beside humans. And once that happened, humans began pushing dog bodies in directions that natural selection alone might never have taken them. We produced tiny dogs, long dogs, short-legged dogs, dogs with heavy coats, dogs with almost none, and we produced enormous dogs. An adult English Mastiff can exceed 100 kilograms. A Great Dane can approach 90. An Irish Wolfhound can stand at a height that makes it look less like a pet and more like a small piece of furniture that learned to breathe. So technically, large dogs absolutely exist. Humans made them. Modern genetics has even identified important growth-related factors, including the IGF-1 pathway, that help explain why dog breeds can vary so dramatically in size. The same species can include an animal small enough to carry under one arm and another heavy enough to outweigh many adult humans. But notice what happened when we made dogs gigantic. We still did not create wild, solitary tiger dogs. The largest domestic breeds were developed for roles involving cooperation with humans. Great Danes were historically associated with hunting large animals such as wild boar alongside people. Mastiffs were used for guarding and other working roles. Irish Wolfhounds were developed to pursue large prey. Again and again, even when humans increased the size of the dog, the animal remained part of a team. And humans solved the biggest problem of all: food. A giant wild predator must locate, catch, and kill enough prey to maintain its own enormous metabolism. A giant domestic dog walks into a kitchen and waits for somebody to fill a bowl. That changes everything. Humans created an ecological cheat code. We allowed dogs to carry body sizes that would be much more difficult to support if those animals had to survive entirely on their own in the wild. Which finally brings us back to the beginning. Why are there big cats, but no modern wild dogs the size of tigers? Not because the dog family is incapable of becoming large. Epicyon proves otherwise. Not because every cat hunts alone. Lions complicate that idea. Not because retractable claws are a magical single explanation. The cheetah shows that even cats can move away from the classic ambush and grapple design. And not because evolution decided that cats should be powerful while dogs should be weak. Wolves are not weak. They simply distribute power differently. The largest cats were shaped in systems where individual strength, explosive acceleration, grip, and the ability to overpower prey at close range could reward a large body. Canids became extraordinarily successful using another combination: endurance, movement, social coordination, flexibility, and shared effort. One strategy can concentrate the solution inside one animal. The other can spread the solution across several. Nature tried giant canids. Some became enormous. They did not survive into the modern world. Medium-sized social canids did. And eventually, one of those social lineages found something even more powerful than a pack of its own species. It found humans. That may be the strangest part of the entire story. The tiger became one of the most formidable solitary predators on Earth by making the individual animal extraordinarily capable. The dog followed a path in which survival increasingly depended on relationships. First with other canids, then, eventually, with us. Think about how different those solutions are. Somewhere tonight, a tiger will move through the darkness almost completely alone. It will depend on its own senses, its own muscles, its own claws, its own ability to approach without being seen. If it eats, it will be because its individual body successfully solved the problem of bringing down prey. Somewhere else, a dog will fall asleep beside a human. It will not need to patrol 1,000 square kilometers. It will not need to overpower an animal 5 times its size. It will not need retractable claws. Its survival strategy crossed into something completely different. Trust the group. Read the group. Stay close to the group. Work with the group. And eventually, becomes so good at cooperation that the group does not even have to belong to your own species. That is why comparing a wolf to a tiger and asking why the wolf is not larger misses the point. The wolf was never trying to become a tiger. Evolution does not produce one perfect predator. It produces different answers to different problems. For the big cats, one answer was power concentrated in the individual. For the canids, another answer was power multiplied through cooperation. Both worked. Both survived for millions of years in different forms. But only one of them eventually walked into our camps, stayed beside us, learned to read our gestures, followed us into our homes, and became family. Your dog does not need to be the size of a tiger. Its ancestors found another way to win.